All right, giving it another shot with the live feed. Sorry, I have a lot of internet problems at my house. We're supposed to be getting new internet really soon. So till that happens, I'm going to be dealing with cutting out video and bad audio. But I try to get through these videos. I'm using it to basically just test out some new software, things like that. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. It just helps us when we have more followers to create more videos like this one. See, we've already created quite a few with dirt late models, and so wanted to change it up and get into some dirt modifieds and also some other types of cars. If you have any questions while I'm going through this video related to any type of design, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer any question the best that I can. And let me just open that up really quick. All right, there we go. All right, so I had this design submitted to me on a Facebook, our School of Racing Graphics Facebook feedback page. Somebody asked for feedback, so I took this one and decided to bring it into some software and clean it up a little bit, show you what I would do to make it a little bit more legible, stand out at the track just a little bit more. It passes the initial eye test. There's not major problems with it as far as if you saw it at the track, you wouldn't think it was a bad car or something was done wrong. But there are some things that we can clean up and test out. So I'm flying basically blind. I didn't have a plan coming in, so I'm just going to kind of pull it apart, make some adjustments, go through the design the best I can. And so a lot of times I just do trial and error. I know that sometimes when you see a final product or a final wrap of somebody's, you probably think they just landed on that final result. But a lot of times it is just trial and error. You try something. If it doesn't work, you try something else. And so I'll probably do a lot of that here in this video. So the first thing I'm going to start with is actually the number of the car. And I'm only going to work the driver's side. I'm not going to work the other side because basically everything I would do on this side, I would do on the top and on the roof as well. So my first goal here is just going to be to have a reference point. So I'm going to grab all these pieces to the number, and he had them grouped, but he also had them grouped from driver's side to the other side. And that's typically not how I work. I don't typically group things like that. I usually keep them isolated separately like that. The only thing I'm missing is this black piece here. So I'm going to lock some stuff down, lock down the template, go ahead. I can't tell if he's got something else linked in there. So I'm just going to drag that over here, and I'm going to create a new layer. It doesn't really matter the name. Just bring it to the top and then throw that up in there so I can see it, and I have a nice clean reference point to work from. And then in order to, this is what I always do when I'm working with like a new number or anything. I like to start from base. So this is already skewed. It's slanted to fit the door. And so I want to get back to base. So I'm going to kind of figure out where we're at here. I'm going to guess negative 35 or a little bit more. So it looks like negative 40, which is quite a bit. You can get away with negative 40 in a 40 angle skew when you're designing. If it's a single digit number, you can get away with that. Usually double digit numbers are a little bit harder to do that with. It's actually more than 40. He's got it angled just a little bit here. So I'm going to straighten that out. And one of the ways you do that, you can do it by eye. I turn my rulers on. So show rulers. Just bring a guide down and just kind of give yourself a reference point. Now, if this was like a wrap I was designing and I was going to clean this up, I would actually start with perfectly angled points. So I'd grab these and align them to the bottom, and then I would know I'd have a horizontal line. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and unskew it. And we know that So right there, maybe he was at a 39, somewhere around 39. He's probably going for 40. And so you can kind of see a little bit of wobbliness in there. So I'm just going to leave it like that for now. But I like to get back to base because I want that to basically be my starting point. And so if I need to start over, I have a good spot to get back to without having a destructive workflow. So I'm going to move this over here. One thing you'll notice too is these soft shadows. We'll talk about those in just a second and how to use them if you're going to use them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually size this up. I like to use up my space, especially on these dirt modifieds, dirt late models. It's just custom to, or it's normal to use up the space the best you can. You don't want a lot of like blank space or awkwardness in your number or in your sponsors. And then I'm going to go ahead and skew back now that I'm back to base, but I'm just going to go 35. 35 is typically my maximum. What I do, I think it looks clean. It looks pretty mean. It's 35 is actually pretty intense. Like if I'm doing double digit numbers, I'm typically going to do 25. So there's something a little bit, I guess you could say, unique we could do with this particular car because it's a number 1. So typically what I like to do with numbers, and this is always a rule of thumb with any number you're doing, is the top line of the number should always follow the top line of the door. Now this is a presentation template, so it's going to lay out a little different than it would on a print template. So your print template, usually you're not going to have your rake built into your print. You're going to have just a straight line, and then your rake is probably going to be built down in the bottom of your door instead. And that's just because on a proof, it looks weird to do it that way, to have just a straight line there. None of the cars look like that. They all have rake. And so in our presentation templates, we always make the rake at the top and then straight at the bottom. But then in your print template, you're going to have to adjust it. So, but with the number 1, I can actually, instead of just adjusting this, like I could crank it like this, and then I end up with a weird angle at the bottom in comparison, right? There's a couple different ways to adjust that. One, you can use the free transform tool. You just hit E in Adobe Illustrator, and then you can adjust the corners of any element really. And so if you let me change the color of this so you can see what I'm doing here. So now you can see. So I can adjust the corners if I want the angle to go up, down, whatever I want it to follow, right? And so if I wanted that top to follow the top of the door, I got to make that adjustment. But it changes my angles, my skew. These are not parallel anymore. And so with a 1, this is super simple. We could just drag this point up right here and look at my lines down here are already good, and my lines up here are pretty good. You want to stay parallel or straight with what you got here. You can hear my 5-year-old upstairs just like stomping and grinding. He is something else. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes down here and starts talking. And if he does, I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is sometimes. All right. So you want to match the top of the door. You want to match the bottom of the door the best you can. You don't always have to match the bottom like he didn't down here, but he did up here. And you could leave it like that, but the number being cleaned up would make a big difference in how it all turns out. So I'm going to go ahead and start styling this number, and I'm going to do it the way I typically always do it, which is in the appearance panel. So I've already got a fill, and I know I'm going to want to have at least 1, 2 more fills because he's got 2 on here. And I'm not trying to redesign his car. I'm just trying to make it more functional. So one of the things I noticed right away about the number is how these 2 outlines are the same. They're the same width, which makes them wrestle, right? It's like which one is the one that's most important, and so you don't want to make people figure that out what you were trying to do with your design. So one's got to be dominant, and then one ends up being kind of like the little, you can call it like the little brother or the accent to it, right? And so it doesn't matter what colors you use. Well, it does matter, but as far as, you can do all of your adjustments on your sizes and then adjust colors later to make it look right. That's my point. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and work this number here for just a minute. So I got 3 fills on here, and I'm just going to select one of them and go to Effect, Path, Offset Path. And for now, I'm just going to go to Let's see what 2 pixels does. I'm not working in full size. Typically never do in these videos. So I'm going to go 3 pixels, and that's going to give me a nice fat black outline on the number. And it doesn't look like he has any swatches set up. I always set up with swatches. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this black, and then I'm going to select it to be global. In case I want to change it later, I can change it universally. Okay. So I'll turn that black. And then he's got the green color here, which looks like it's probably going to end up being an overlay colors. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is take that. I'm also going to turn that into a global swatch, just like that. And then I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to offset this path here to, let's say 5 pixels for now, and just see what it looks like. Okay, and I'm going to turn that one green, and that's going to be pretty close to matching what it is that he has already built. Now, one of the things that he did is he built a shadow, a box shadow, into his first stroke, which is something I typically don't do. It's not that you can't do it. I typically don't like the look of it because it creates a lot of shapes and it just gives you a lot of different things going on that I don't particularly appreciate in my own design preferences. So I'm going to go ahead and take this black because I think the black needs to be thicker. And so I think we did 3 pixels. So let's go up to 4 pixels. And then I kind of like where that green lands. It's still there as an accent, right? But it's not dominating, and it's not trying to take over what we've got going on here with the black. They're not wrestling with each other, and that's the point, right? Because the size, contrast is in size, color, and shape. Always know that. Contrast isn't just color. A lot of people just think of contrast as color. It's not. It's size, color, and shape. So you got to remember that while you're designing. Okay, so I can crank up that green one just a little bit. So we're at 5. I'll go 5.5 pixels for now. And I'm just doing everything by eye. Again, this is not at all official sizes. And so then I'm going to take that guy there. And he did have the drop shadow, which I don't mind. If I wanted to do that, I could do something similar by grabbing this and saying effect stylized drop shadow, right? And see, that puts a soft shadow on it. So I could turn the blur to 0, turn the mode to normal, and then turn the opacity all the way up. And then I just have to make sure that the right swatch is picked. So right now it's black, so I'll leave that there for a second. I'm going to name this, though, so that I can get to it easily. Black, we'll just call it that for now. And then I'll go back into this, go to drop shadow, and go to the color swatches. And now I'll be able to find it because I named it, right? It's probably going to be down here at the bottom because it's at the bottom of my swatches panel. Click OK. Okay, so now I know it's that right black, and the shadow is way too deep, and I don't want to make it deep, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it down to like 107, and I'm going to do both of them at 0.7, like so, and a little more. All right, so something like that, and I can always come back and adjust it later because it's a non-destructive workflow. So what I do now isn't all that important. And so then I could take this same drop shadow, and I can hold down the Option button or Alt key, or Alt or Option, depending if you're on Mac or PC, and I can drop it here onto the green. I gotta have it selected. If you don't select the item you're working on, it won't do it. It won't work. Okay, so there it is. It's up there now. Then all I got to do is just go into the drop shadow and change the color to the green, right? And now what ends up happening is that green wraps around the black, and I have that kind of shadow. Now, Illustrator doesn't have a non-destructive way of making sure that it's a block. Like, see how he blocked it here? There is, well, technically there is. I don't like to use it. It's you got to get into the 3D side of it. And it's not real hard. I'm not going to cover that in this video. It's just beyond the scope. So for now, we're just going to leave it like this. And it semi-matches his number that he's got going on here. Okay, so now the one thing that we haven't added in yet is the star. So I'm going to probably just take the star and have it as a separate item instead of being tied into the number. That's just my preference. So I'll work on that here in just a little bit. But I want to dress this number up just a little bit here. So I want to avoid doing a contrast sandwich. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know I talked about contrast sandwiches at length, and it just means light color, dark color, light color, dark color, right? You don't want to do a lot of that because it just creates confusion to the eye, and you want to create clean contrast and get to the point or draw people's eye to the point that you're trying to, which is really this white number 1. That's really what we're trying to draw everyone's attention to. Okay, but I do want to dress this number up just a little bit because it looks a little flat, right? It could look a little bit more dynamic as to with everything we got going on here. So the first thing I can do is go ahead and duplicate my fill, which is the kind of, he's got a radial gradient on it. And I'm going to turn the one underneath it green. Okay, and then I'm going to offset this one. So I'm going to drag this offset, bring it here. It's going to expand that, but all I'm going to do is just take and put a negative sign in front of it. And then decrease this to, let's say, 2 for now. Like that, and then it gives me a nice little green one on the inside, but it kind of is wrestling a little bit, right? I'm trying to add detail in, but I'm not trying to decorate every single component of the wrap design, because you don't want to over-decorate. Over-decorating typically takes away from the point of the wrap, which is to make sure everything is visible, or the sponsors' numbers are visible. So I'm going to do a real light version, okay? Now, what this does is it actually softens the look up and gives it just a little bit more of a dynamic that maybe in the stands you might not see, but in the pits it'll look like a really nice car. Now, there's another thing you can do too to add to the dynamic. So don't ever think of when you're using a color that you only have to use one shade of that color. And Austin didn't do that when he was designing this. He used multiple shades of green, which is really good because it helps break up the design and create contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this green here, and I'm going to tone it something way down a little bit darker. He's already got something like that in the background. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to call it dark green for now, and I'm going to click OK. All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this green one here. This is my original number shape, and I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to do another offset path right here. And you can see it goes on there, so I got to adjust it. And I don't want it that thick. I actually want it almost as thin as the one I have here. So we can just type in 1, go to preview. And now I have a green on the outside and a green on the inside. But I'm going to take that second one and I'm going to turn it to dark green color. And what that starts doing is kind of giving us a nice little fade, right? Now, it's okay that these two are the same size because one is introducing the black and one is introducing the white. And so when you zoom out, it gives you a nice little detail there on the wrap. Okay, and you can do that technique almost in any wrap design. Just always make sure you're blending. Like don't go opposite. Like here's a bad practice. Get the green here, and then you do this, and you end up with I know you've seen wrap designs like this, and I know you probably think it looks cool, but it actually is really confusing to the eye and trying to help the eye determine what it is meant to see. So always think of it the opposite direction, right? So we don't want to, that's a contrast sandwich. We went light, dark, light, right? And do you see what I mean by sandwich? It's like it's like a Big Mac. You got a bun on the top, piece of meat, another bun, piece of meat, another bun. And so you got this weird contrast that you're starting to create. So blend your contrast in and out, and it really helps soften up and make your elements friendly to people's eyeballs. Now, many people are ignorant. They don't know. And when I say many people are ignorant, I don't mean designers. I actually mean people that go to the races. They don't know the difference. They just, hey, that looks really cool. This looks good, whatever. But as a designer, you need to know why things look good, not just, hey, I threw up a bunch of shapes and splashed up a bunch of colors. And so it just, it landed right. So I guess it's good looking. Know why things work and why things don't work. And that's what I'm really, trying to help with these videos. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. And so now you can see the nice soft blend. And you can take it even a step further. So we could take this green here, duplicate it again, offset path, and we're going to go 2 now because we've doubled it. And what I could do is take the black, and I'm going to go ahead and just, whoops, got to get off selecting something. I'm going to take this black here. I'm going to go grayscale, and I'm going to just crank it down to like 80. This is just going to kind of create a nice little detail for me. Let's try 70, and I can always come back and adjust it if I need to. Okay, and so here we go. I'm going to put a nice little fade here in that outline. So I've got this green. I want to go ahead and put a gradient in it. Now, don't gradient your fluorescence. You can't overlay. I mean, you can. There's a way to do it. You got to like use dot patterns and things like that. It's a pain in the butt. But don't put your fluorescent into a gradient because that's not realistic. You can't overlay a gradient unless you spray paint it or do something weird. But that's a lot of extra work. So I'm going to do my black, and I'm going to do my new gray color, get rid of all these, and then go ahead and go up here. And then crank it to 90 degrees. And so now you can see what we have. What do we have? Not what I was intending. Oh, we are on a radial, and we want to be on linear. So I click linear gradient here. Okay, so now you can see we're fading up from black to gray. Now, think of your details when you're working. You don't need to have intense details all over everything. You should have your main points, and then everything else is just kind of a small embellishment to help it to look a little bit more dynamic, especially when you're close up. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, and I don't like exactly how light that silver is there. So I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to grab this here, but I don't have to actually grab the gradient. What I could do is just take this here because I made a global swatch, and I can just crank it up until it gets as dark as I want it to be. Now, this is where you can start getting into some really cool stuff because I'm using dark colors. Like I'm using this black color, right? So this is kind of like color theory stuff here. I'm using this black color. I want the contrast to stay nice and rich. We're nice and dark, so I'm using black, okay? But that doesn't mean everything I do in the black has to be black. I can use really dark, rich colors within the black to really help create and accentuate the contrast without just having to default to black all the time, right? So I could have like a really rich green color, right? Just something almost black, but super rich, super green, like that. And then I could just copy it over and bam. So now I have a number with no black in it. And you'll see I do this on a lot of wrap designs because I think black is sometimes overused. And it goes from, really dark green to lighter shades of green. But everything fades in and out, and it looks really nice because I'm telling the eye where to go with my blend, right? I'm blending the colors, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it back to black because that's what he had it, and I'm not trying to reinvent his wheel. Now, just a side note, something I like to do, I like to get more colors into things. Now, this card probably is like, hey, I like green, I like black, and I like white. Do that, right? And so you kind of got to stick with what the client said. But honestly, like you can see where having another swatch that was maybe a darker blue, right? Or bluish color. So something really rich. I always like more of aqua blues or things I lean towards. So let's say I had this swatch here. And I'm not trying to go crazy and start introducing a bunch of colors everywhere, but you can see it's got a nice finesse to it. I added the blue in. It's not out of place. It's not creating a contrast sandwich. It's not wrestling with anything. It's like you're adding a detail, but it's not taking away from anything. And if you really want it to be, I got rid of my blue there. Let's go back. I'm going to lock that layer so I can unselect stuff. There we go. So if you really want it to be like a nice fade, so I'll go back, get my blue. Okay, got a nice blue there. Now I'm going to select that, get on my gradient, and then pull the blue down and make that so the black fades into the blue. And now it's a really nice color fade from black into blue. And again, not killing anything here, right? I'm not trying to create a contrast sandwich. I might darken that blue up a little bit so it's not wrestling so much up here. But you get the basic idea, right? And so, again, I'm not going to do that, but I just want to show you, like, experiment with those little details like that, and you'll be surprised at what they add to a wrap design and the quality of it, right? And so now I'm going to take the same number, and we got right here. So I just want you to see in the appearance panel here. And this is really, I would say, one of the best features of Adobe Illustrator is using the appearance panel. I really wish FlexiSign would develop something like this. I don't believe Corel has anything like this either. Again, all the tools are similar; they work the same. But if you're a Corel or Flexi user, you're probably watching and wondering, well, how does that even work? All right, cut out there for just a second. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this black here, and then I'm going to drag this fill just by holding. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry, I did the wrong thing there. I'm going to duplicate this guy. And I'm going to drag this guy down here. So now I got one fade here, and then I got one fade on the, it's back here, it's just hidden. And now, so if I turn this off, you'll see. And then I just crank this up. Actually, I need it to be offset the same. So I'm going to copy that down here, get rid of this one. So now I have it offset like that. And then when I cover it with the black, you can't see it, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this one down just a little bit. And we'll try 4. Nope, too much. 4, 5. Like that. And now you can see I got a nice little fade there. All right, so our drop shadow is doing a weird thing. So all I have to do now is just take my drop shadow, bring it down here, and it puts it behind that nice little fade. And then we got to make sure that our fade is at 90 degrees, so it's fading from top to bottom. Otherwise, it ends up looking weird. And maybe the second one doesn't need to be like as light, right? So there's even ways to get around that. Like I could hit G, let's see, gradient tool, and then I can move this so that you can see it's kind of getting rid of it a little bit there. All I did is I moved the gray up here a little bit. And so now I have a lighter and a darker one. And I would adjust these and play with them more, but I'm not going to do that for this particular video just because of time. So you can see, so we've added quite a bit more to the number, a lot more details, got a nice cool little line in there, nice little detail. And you can see how clean all of the outlines are on this particular number because everything is offset. The drop shadows are the same angle, both to the right and down. Where see on this one, it looks like the drop shadow just came straight back, right? And that ends up creating this kind of like double look to the number, which isn't, it just ends up not looking really clean. And you can see a lot of this too, right? So like you got pretty thick here, and then it thins out right here, and then it gets kind of thin here, it thickens back out, thick. And so there's inconsistencies all the way around the number that just make it takes away the cleanliness of the look. So I'm going to go ahead, scale this guy down just a little bit here so he fits with the sponsors. Now, the sponsors can go down just a little bit. I know those rivets are down there, but honestly, the wrap is going to go over the rivets, so you can just put them right over top of that. Okay, so we got that going. I think that looks pretty good. I would adjust sizes a little bit. I don't want to sit here in a video for 45 minutes tweaking sizes until I'm happy with it. But you kind of get the basic idea. And so you could take this guy here, this last fill, and again, put a really rich looking, I deleted that previous swap here. What we'll do is we'll turn this blue one to our really rich green. So I'll just copy that one over and then add a little black to that guy, and then just test it out. So I'm going to turn this one that color, and then adjust the offset path to, let's say 8. See what happens. Kind of a guessing game there. And you can see it's kind of a pretty big contrast sandwich. I don't know if I like that, so I'll keep it for a second. I'm going to go ahead and name my green really dark green. All right, really dark green. Click OK. And now I can go into my drop shadow, click this guy here, and just easily find that right there, like that. And now if I don't like how dark it is, and I think it's got too much contrast on it, I could leave it. It passes the initial eye test, but it doesn't really follow what I was aiming to do in the first place, which is to make everything soft, right? And so I could just come in here and just keep on adjusting it until it kind of lands where I want, right? So something like that, just another added little detail. Okay, and I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to grab this white, and I'm going to offset this one. Let's go 2, like that. And I'm going to turn this one here now all the way white. So I say all the way white. It's just fully white, right? And it gives us just a little more separation between that silver and the green and all that kind of stuff. And kind of, I mean, you could really experiment with that. You could turn it up to 4, see what happens. And so you can see you get this nice white outline, and it doesn't really take away from anything. It actually kind of looks pretty nice, right? And so let's go 3, 5. Now at this point, I'm just experimenting. I'm just like kind of having fun with it, see if I can do things that are a little bit unique with it, right? So I can take another one, and I can take this one and make it 4, so real thin, right? And let's just see where this lands here. So it gives me that nice, really nice thin like look right there. So again, I'm going to add another detail in. So what I'm going to do though on this one is I'm going to take my gradient, and I'm just going to take it and make it linear. So he's got a radial gradient here, which is like an orb or like a white circle, and then it fades out to silver. Okay, so on this one, now we're just going to fade up. So I'm going to go 90 degrees, and you're going to start noticing some dynamics happening. See a little silver right in there, right, and a little bit right in there. But we can actually make it even more dynamic by duplicating these. Oops. So here's a kind of hot tip in Adobe Illustrator. Like don't just click your markers in if you're using globals, right? So I got a global color here. You can see it, right? And then a global here. But if I just click in the middle, now it's a mixed color. So what you have to do is you have to get your global color near the edge, and then anything that you put between the edge and your global color will always come in as a global. So you can do that. I know it's kind of weird, but that's the way it is. So I could do, and then I could do that, and then I can start mixing them in. That. And what you want to do is make sure your last one and your first one are the same, so they blend right into each other. Okay, like that. And I think that looks pretty good. And now you can see these little shimmers right in here. And they didn't, again, it's not doing anything to take away. I like to throw it at a 45-degree angle just so it's a little unpredictable. There you go. Now you got a nice soft number with some pretty neat details in it. I might thicken a few things up in order to make it look a little better, but I'm not going to go through that right now. But the really nice thing that we just did is we created a style, right? So now we have styles on our wrap design. So I could take this, throw it in here, and now I could use it on anything else that's within the wrap design. So I did all that work. It's kind of a lot, right, at the beginning, but once it all starts coming together, now I've done work for every element that's on the design, every sponsor, right? So I got to integrate the star. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of bring the star here. And so like stars like this, so I could tell what it came from. So typically with a star in Illustrator, you can click and make a star, and it kind of like a fat, like the star doesn't have straight points or anything. It's like, I don't know how to explain it exactly. I don't like it. That's the best way I can explain it. So you can see like they're not straight 90-degree corners. So I like to get 90s on those. So I'm going to go ahead and turn radius 2 down. And that's all you're doing. So it's adjusting radius 1, which is on the outside of the star, and then radius 2, which is on the inside of the star. And that's going to determine whether or not your star is going to be sharp. So you see what it did there? Okay. So what I need to do is turn this one actually up. So I'll click 7, and there we go. And I'm going to go to 8, and that's getting closer. Try 9. It's kind of trial and error to get where you want. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these guys out. And then I'm going to take this, flip it around, 180, and see what I got here now is a traditional flat star. It's not perfectly flat, but you can see that flat across kind of thing, right? And this was one of those previous ones. So now I'm going to take that, and you can see down here too, right? The pattern being made. And I'm going to take this guy here, shear it, and we're going to go, we could make it a little squatty just to help with the shearing so it doesn't stretch it too much. And now I'm going to go ahead and throw that in. Like that. Whoop. Oh yeah, I'm going to address that soft shadow issue there here in a second. And I'm going to bring this up. Nope. There we go. So I kind of like the idea of the black star. It's kind of black, a little contrast from the white, but we got to make sure that it is really squatty. So let's do this. That. And then what I can do is I can take this and, well, I already did it. So I can take this and then throw that graphic style on it. But you can see it's a mess. It's got a lot of stuff on it, right? So we don't want all that, of course. So what I'm going to do is just go through and delete the things I don't want. One, I want the fill to be black. So we're going to start there, okay? Then I don't think we're going to use any of the white because we're going to use fluorescent green. So I'm going to delete all of these elements off. You can always think of like your stars, your embellishments to your numbers, like if it's like the number was like 1J. You can just always think of the embellishments as separate elements altogether. They don't have to be included. It doesn't have to be glued to it, right? Sometimes it calls for it and you do that, and sometimes it doesn't and you don't. And so let's see here. So this offset path is, we're not offsetting that path. We are going to offset this path, and we're going to offset it 4. So now we got that. And so you can see it gets cut right here and right here, right? Which doesn't look good. And so just the way to adjust that, just crank this guy up to 100. You could crank it up more if you wanted to, or less depending on your design. Now we'll take that down to 3. Something like that. I think that's kind of starting to look more like it belongs with the 1, right? Probably something that matches this over here. Okay, and then I'm going to move it in a way where I don't want it to cover the 1 and then look like something else. But I also there's kind of like a fine way to do, like, kind of fine tune it, right? So like some people I see do this, they end up with like a weird thing here, a weird thing up here. Some people do this, like, oh yeah, I got it filled in, but then you end up with a weird thing here. So it's just like kind of get it nice and in there, like they're married, right? You're not creating a lot of shapes. Okay, there you go. So now you got the 1 star, but you still got that nice edge off the 1, so you can tell what it is. Because sometimes it's like if it's up here, kind of, it looks weird. Just don't do that. Okay, if it looks weird, if it offends your eye, don't do it. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and add in a really dark green, the deep green. Did I get rid of it again? Oh, no, I didn't. Here it is. Okay. And then I'm going to offset this path here. And I'm just going to go negative like that. And then that introduces that green color there. And it kind of matches the outline that's out here. So everything's working together pretty well. And so you can see it's the 1 star car. And so a little lesson here on the graphic. So you got the graphic in the background, which I have locked right now, but now I got this little white point coming out, which makes 0 sense, right? First of all, one thing I can do, getting back to the star here for a second, is I can take this and offset it. Let's go 1/8. That ain't right. What was it? What am I doing here? Let's go 2. Oh, I see. It's got to be more than that one. So this one's 2.5. So this one will go 3.1. Like that. And I'm just eyeballing it for now. It's not anything official, right? And then crank that up. And I'm going to do this. It doesn't mean I'm going to stick with it because I don't like necessarily how all that dark is coming in there now and kind of like taken away from the inside of the one like it is. And so what I would do, because I kind of want to marry that idea of the final outline being on the star in the car, is I could take this star here and just duplicate it, hold down Option, drag the layer. So now I got two of them. And I'm going to send one behind the one, like that. And then the one on top isn't going to get the outline, that final green one, right? And so now the green outline here is following that green outline there. And so all I got to do is thicken it up to match. So we'll go 3/4. So, and then change the color to match. There it is, right there. Okay. So now it all kind of looks like it belongs together without overdoing the star. You don't have to have every single style that's on the number on the star. You don't have to. Okay, but it all looks like it's belonging together in one way, shape, or form. And I might move it around and play with it a little bit. I'm not going to do that in this video just for the sake of time. Okay, let's address this soft shadow issue and then style up all the rest of these sponsors here. Okay, so one on the soft shadow, this is really going to increase the and it's a print. You got let's shadow 90%. I just don't do that. Like I don't look yeah, interesting. So I'm going to take the wrappings, turn to 100 because that actually not. Okay, so lost you there for a second, and I'm sorry about that. So what I'm going to do is I softened up the shadow there if you missed it, and I just went to the document raster setting, so effects, document raster effects, like that. And what it does is it just, if I set it down to 72, it makes it so that the shadows are not soft, right? Because it's a low resolution. So document raster settings. But what this is going to do is really increase your file size. So that's why I don't use the soft shadows ever. So I'm going to leave my document settings at 72. Then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to my soft shadow. And for now, I'm just going to ditch it. Yeah, I'll just ditch that. I just don't like it. Okay. Now, the other thing is I want to get to a clean point for this particular wrap design. So I see this design a lot. So Austin is he's in my Facebook group. I see him in iRacing doing stuff quite often, and so I see this logo everywhere. And my one gripe with the logo is, again, how all of these outlines are like wrestling with each other because they're sharing the same size. It's like the size from here to here is the same, and then from here to here is the same, which just makes it really it's overdone. Plus, you got this point down here that doesn't really serve a purpose. Okay, so we're just gonna I'm gonna kind of take his letters and adjust them how I would rather have them, if that makes sense. I noticed too he's got some other layers in here, which is fine. That happens, I guess. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. And I'll delete this too. I don't mind how thick he has the black, this black here, but I would also clean it up. So like I'm not gonna just leave all those shapes in there. It's like every time you do a design, if all those shapes are in there, you're just adding more data to your design. So I'm gonna ungroup everything, right? Continue to ungroup. So you can see it's kind of it's harder to like maneuver your designs and things around when you got things grouped. So like I'm going to bring all of that together, and then I'm going to delete this point here because one, it takes up space that it doesn't need to take up. Okay. Actually, you know what? We're just going to start over. Okay. All right. Like that. Get rid of this guy here. And then we're going to take our white, combine it all together. And now I'm going to take this guy here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to size this down. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm just going to size down my style just a little bit, okay? And then I'm going to throw it over here as graphic style 2, and then select the white, and let's just see what happens. There we go. So I'm almost back to where he was when he was designing this. And so I wonder where that point is coming from. Oh, it's coming from this arrow here, right? And so there's a couple different ways to solve that. One, after we expand it, we could just delete it out. Can move it around, right? But that point is all from that arrow. Okay, so obviously how much I have here on this is too much. You don't want all that. And there's no reason to have all of that, right? So just a little hint here and a little hint there will go a long way. What I do want always is for my final outline to match my final outline. So that's what's going to bring it together, okay? So I'm pretty happy with I don't want the silver in there, that's for sure. So I'm going to take the silvers out, right? And that's going to clean up the AC. And now I got a nice kind of clean look there. But then even that green is just a little too thick. So I'm going to offset this back to 3. I don't mind it being there, but it doesn't need to be that thick. I would never like have a professional logo designer design it and be satisfied with that look. And then one thing you could do too to get colors into your logos is we could turn this white and then take this guy here, this bar. I could separate it. So let's do that. Right, I'm just after the bar, so everything else needs to go. Okay, and then I'm going to clear the appearance so there's nothing on it. And then I'm just going to set it here and turn it green, right? So now I got that. And because I'm going on to fluorescent, like that, there's a way to snap that into place. If I was being more picky, I would do it. And then turn that black like that. And that gets a little bit of color into the logo design. And it follows all the styling that I have on the number. Hey, Kevin, how's it going, man? Good to see you, dude. And so I'm going to go ahead and make sure all my gradients follow. Looks like I have gradients that are going from here to here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and go 90. And I think there's another one. Oops. And I'm going to take this one and go 90 like that. All right, there we go. And then what I'm going to do with this particular style, first I'm going to take it, I'm going to throw it over here. So now I have it over here. And then I'm going to go ahead and expand it. And what that's going to do is it's going to finalize everything that I just did. But I can't, there's no way for me to adjust these things without it being expanded. So I have to do that. So now I'm in a destructive workflow. Like everything I do, it's final, right? So I'm going to get rid of all this. And once you get rid of tabs, you'll see it's all going to just start lining back up, right? So it all lines up. Then just get rid of your extras just to keep your artwork nice and clean. And then there's things that I would do to probably adjust this. So maybe take that point there, add a point in, take it over there, and then add a point in, take it over there. and then bring all these down so that they matched in thickness. So I would do something like that. I would do some cleanup work up here, this area right here, maybe clean this area up here. I'm not going to spend all the time doing that, but you can see what I've done to this logo. It makes it so that it's not, the green outline's not wrestling with the black outline. They are the same thickness. So I could turn the black down just a little bit. I can't do it now because I went into a destructive workflow. But even still, the colors introducing each other with a little bit of green and the white and all that kind of stuff, it just really helps with the graphics. So I'm going to group all that together. Now I did save my graphic style, and I don't want to touch in the front of the car either. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to make sure it lines up, which it does. Okay, we're good. And so move that there, like so. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead, turn this one off, and I'm going to come up to here. And so you can see how all of this is starting to work together, and you have a little bit more space even for all the elements. I really want that green and that green to be the same, and I didn't do that. I probably could do something like this. And that kind of thickens it up a little, and then offset the path. That. So it's a little bit closer there. I just for the sake of the time on the video, I'm not going to go through and perfect that, but you kind of get the idea of what I'm going after. Okay, so again, we got the soft shadow up here. I'm not digging that at all. I'm going to delete that out. Go ahead and ungroup this, and then I'm just going to grab all of the white on that. So we'll just go ahead. It's already grouped together, which is real nice. And I'll delete that out. And then I'm going to grab that. Okay, got a lot of stuff going on there. All right. So, and then we'll go ahead and delete that out too. Okay, I'm not gonna update the logo as far as the text. I'm just going to leave it, but I will use this graphic style on it. And again, that kind of just brings everything together just a little bit. Maybe a little thicker. So yeah, that black is too thick at that point. And so what I don't like when it happens with logos is these little spots here. So I want to stick with my non-destructive workflow. So I'll show you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go ahead and thicken this up just a little bit. That, and that's going to match more what I got on my one. And I'll thicken this one. That. And then so what I'm going to do to keep my non-destructive workflow going is I'm going to go ahead and fill these in with just little shapes that are the same color as that black. One little thing I don't like over here about this is I'm getting a random, and so that's coming off that S there. You see what I'm saying right here, this. So again, I would clean that up. You could do that, I guess. No, that brings that back. So even just small adjustment to a point can work it a little bit, or you can expand it like you saw me do earlier, and that will make it so that it's adjustable, and then I can just adjust it. But so I wouldn't necessarily leave it like that. I would keep it nice and clean. So I'll just take this guy here, put it there, turn it black. Because what that's doing, what these shapes are doing, they're drawing your eye into other things that are just not important, right? And so now I can select that, and group them together. There you go. Something like that. Okay, and then the Marshall trucking. Now this is kind of where, you can start really making things look a lot better. because your primary sponsor really is the thing that makes all the difference on your wrap designs. Really, your number, your primary sponsor. So one, I think I moved the number. Yeah, certainly did. So give that back where it goes. Get the star back where it goes. My number was up like that. There we go. That. Okay, I'm going to move that back just a little. And I'm going to group it now so I don't have to do that again. Okay, so this, I want to break this apart. And so I want to just basically get down to the white of it. So there we go. I'll just delete all that. And what I like to do, one of two things. So we got those. Okay, but I would want to take this guy here and just really size it up. So that means even too, like it's okay to size this one down. Sometimes I even like my sponsor to go up onto the sail panel so that it's really kind of takes over a lot of space, really stands out, right? And so I'm going to take the Marshall Trucking and I'm going to go ahead and I guess I'll leave it down here for now. That's what he did. I'll stick with it. All right. So I'm going to take Marshall Trucking, and you could make it match the skew. You don't have to. Logos are logos. So it's like whatever the logo is what it is. It's like you can't just be changing it just because you got a design preference, right? So your number, and that's the thing about like racing culture design is like you do things in the wraps that are going to be different than like maybe a corporate look, because in corporate design, everything makes sense with each other. But on a race car, it's like you got 4 logos. All of them are a different brand. They all have a different look, different feel. You can't make them all do the same thing, right? And so you're stuck with what you got, right? And so it actually makes sense though when you see it, because you're like, we all accept that, right, as like a part of design. This is a little bit too squished down, so I'm going to pull it down just a little bit and get some of the readability back. I think that font is called Defoe, Mr. Defoe. Then you got a nice little clip art truck here or something like that, which I always like those on logos. I think they kind of makes them stand out a little bit like that. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Marshall and I'm just going to apply the style, but I want to get back to my number style here for this one. Okay, and I'm going to take this one and I'm just going to size it down just a touch and drag it over here. And you can name these, so you can say, hey, sponsor, primary sponsor, right? So we know what one's what. But the other thing that tells it too is when you select something with a style, it tells you which one you've got selected if you haven't adjusted it at all. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and then select primary sponsor. And it's pretty close to what I've got going on with the number here, except the green line is not quite it's not quite as thick. And I'm just taking a liberty here by adding some skewing. The person who owns this logo or the business might say like, hey, I don't like that. And so you got to listen to the people that, whoever's in charge of that logo, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move it down just a little bit more. And then I'm going to adjust my green. So let's actually get rid of this guy here. Okay, I'm going to adjust my green to match my number, which is a guessing game. It doesn't have to be a guessing game. So if I was doing this like life size, I would know in my mind. Everything is happening at 1/8 inch increments. So 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, 1 1/8, right? That's kind of how I think it through when I'm doing things life size. But right now here, I'm not doing it life size. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give me just a second. I just lost my studio, which I have it on 2 computers. So if one goes away, I can get it back open on another one, but I need to get this one open just so yep, there we go. Okay, I just need to have control on a different computer, so I'm not doing it on the computer I'm designing on. Alrighty, so getting back to it. So now I'm doing these separate. I'm doing the trucking and the truck separate. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and preview that. Click OK. An offset path. Let's go up to 6.5, like that. That looks pretty close. And then we'll take this guy up, offset path, and we'll go 7.5 maybe. That'll work. Something like that. It's a little too big, so we'll go 7.4. Something like that. Okay, there we go. So now I got Marshall on there, and then this trucking, I'm going to actually keep it simple so it's readable, right? So one, I'm going to combine it all together, and then I'm just going to give it a second fill, black, black fill, and I'm going to offset it, effect, path, offset path, and we'll go 2 pixels. Try it out. You never know what you're going to get when you got a brush, kind of a brush script font. So you kind of, you just got to be a little bit careful as to how you go about it, because it could point everywhere. It can make a bunch of shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Bring that up there. And see what that does there is it ends up looking like it kind of fits into the black of the Marshall. And I'm not covering any of the letters of Marshall in a way that makes it unreadable, right? That would be like if I started throwing things around up here like that. It's like that doesn't really make sense. Just a little bit of coverage goes a long way. And then what I can do to integrate this, because I could do the typical thing. I could get an outline on it, offset the path, go 0.04 or whatever, and then turn that green. And now I got green and then white and so you end up with all these things going on, right? That are maybe a little bit unnecessary. So what I could do is just leave that one off and then doubled my white up, right? And then set it to the inside. And I'm going to offset this, and we're going to go negative 0.5 pixels, see what it looks like. Because anything fluorescent next to white is actually always going to look pretty decent. It's going to help it. Now, the one way you can screw things up is if you offset things that are white to the outside, right? So I got white and then I got fluorescent. So like if I was to say, let's say offset this one, if I went reverse, I just want to show you this. So I went 1 pixel. Let's go half a pixel. Like that, right? And then I didn't have an offset on this one. What ends up happening here is the fluorescent ends up closing up all the gaps and making the whole thing unreadable. So you don't want that. That just creates disaster. And so really what you want to do is you just take that, leave it as it was, and then let the green kind of be the outside. And even this offset, it doesn't need to be much. You're just introducing the green, right? So we'll go like that. Oops. Like that. Now I just have a little bit of green in there. And then I'm going to actually ungroup these. They're grouped. They don't need to be. I'm going to put one more outline on this, but it's not going to be a heavy one. So let's grab this guy here out of trucking, and I could select it here. It pops here. Then I could put it right here so I can get back to it. And then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to fill it with that. And now I'm going to put it at 90 and then offset this, let's say 3.5, 3.1, like that. And what that does is it kind of introduces, but it doesn't really even need to be up there, right? It could just be down. So I'm actually going to take this and make it a little smaller. So we'll go to 0, like so. And then to keep the feel that I have going, I'm going to take this and make it 2.5. So now it's thinning out, right? But then I'm going to take my gradient and I could just negative 90 and flip it to the bottom. So now I have kind of the nice gradient going up, and there's nothing breaking it all up. It's all kind of working together. And then I could take this style here that I made super simple, and that could be for smaller text and things, and I could throw it on the truck. Now, the problem with the truck, one, it's not cleaned up. It needs to be cleaned up. The problem with the truck is that it has lots of little points on it that are not clean. And so one way to resolve that is just to set everything to round, right? So once you set it to round, see how it wraps right around the truck? That means no sharp edges, though. So it's a trade-off. Like that. And then maybe the green isn't even necessary, right? And so we don't need to offset the path. We don't need green. We don't need the green at all. Or it's a green truck. You know, you can play with it either way. Or you can take this truck and have all those styles sitting there and put a duplicate on top, clear the appearance, right? And so now you have, what do we got here? Yeah, there it is. It's in there. It's just, so now I have the white truck sitting on top of the other one. And then if I want some elements to be green, I can just delete some of these white elements off, right? So I got green there. That kind of brings the color back into the brand without, like, everything doesn't always have to be an outline. Like, everybody's always outlining everything. Like, the outline's the only option. Okay, so you can play with it like that and do other things to it. I don't know that I would leave it like that, but it's an option. That's what's important. Okay, so it's okay to have your sponsor a little cut off in the wheel. So I'm going to move this guy, shrink it down. And again, I'd come back, and I'm not satisfied with the outlines on that as far as them being smaller, right? Because it takes away some of the consistency. So move this guy forward just a little bit. Actually, for now, what I'll do is just ungroup that. No, I'm going to leave it. I'm just not even gonna. I'll just do that. Uh, 0.1. This is just going to have to be good enough. So I'm not making a video that's 9 years long. There we go. Okay. So I'll zoom out, just take a look. And so after I had gotten all that kind of stuff done with the car, that's when I would start messing with the graphic and deciding what I'm going to do with the graphic. So with this particular graphic, I'm just going to unlock everything. So I got all of these, right? And I got all this bright green going on. So, of course, I'm going to have a nice overlay, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer here. And I'm not going to adjust this graphic. There's things that I would do probably different, but I'm not really going to mess with that as much. What do we got? Is that a fill? Is it filled that way? Oh, it's grouped. So I'm going to ungroup it so I can get back to this. Man, so many groups. Okay, so now I'll take that. I'll take this. Those I'll group together. I don't mind those being a group on one side. All right, that makes sense. And then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that group and set the fill to nothing. Okay, and then I'm going to combine it all together. And just so I can see it, I'm going to turn it a crazy color for a second. Just so I can kind of get a look. Make sure I got everything I need. All right, so that's all one shape now. And so what I could do in this particular instance is create another outline. So I'm going to do a stroke with this green on it. That's going to help kind of bring, I think, everything together. So I'm going to go 2 pixels. That's too much. 1.5 pixels on that green. And then this one, I'm going to delete. Sorry, delete, not copy. And then I'm going to take this one here and I'm going to put my deep green on it. And this one is going to be 2 pixels. Like that. And I don't know if I'm really enjoying this. Maybe it's not quite as good as I want it to be. So I'll set those to the inside, and then something like that. So you can see, and what that does is it kind of brings everything together, right? So now I honestly, I have a lot of neon overlay going on now, which would be quite a bit of work afterwards with the weeding and all that. One thing I did miss here was this Howard piece. So that's going to end up going back down here, straightened out onto the number 1, like so. Oh, he's got a drop shadow on it. So something like that. And then the only other thing that really balances out these dirt modifies is to get something in here. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes the design doesn't, you're done. Like there's not another sponsor, there's not another thing, there's contingency sponsors. So, you can play with it that way. But it really would help balance it out to have something else in there. Possibly turning this guy black would really help. And then getting some black in here really helps. And so the placement of your graphic is kind of everything. And this is a little bit of a random graphic, which is okay. I would probably play with the placement. Like I would want a point in some place that kind of like starts to make sense of the rest of the design, right? And so like, if I'm going to have a bunch of points, there's got to be like a point to all of them that brings it together. So like this one here coming out over here, or maybe even going all the way back to here or something like that. And then down a little bit and then kind of making everything else work there. But right here, we got a lot of randomness going on. I would also play with the plastic color and maybe suggest to the client some maybe neon green or fluorescent green plastics, because honestly, it just makes the car look better. I mean, that actually really helps complete it right there without really having to do much more to the graphic. So that's basically everything I would do with the numbers and sponsors on this design. I'm not sure that the graphic is exactly what I would land on. I'd probably, play with a lot of different options. But when you have a solid design, when you have something that you've done and you've done it right or well, as far as sponsors go, then everything kind of starts to work, right? And so even if I just decided I'm going to do just a black bar graphic, right, without a lot of flair, just something like super simple, and then you can start playing with stuff like that, and it just starts working because everything around it is already so solid, right? And so something like that. You can play with ideas like that. You can just do a lot of different things. So really, though, the main point is get everything solid that you're working on, so that whatever you decide on your graphic, that's easy at the end, right? Always think of your graphic at the end, never at the beginning. If you think of your graphic at the beginning, you're going to make an awesome graphic, and then you're going to cover it up. And when you cover it up, it's going to you're going to be disappointed that you put all that work in. And so I always do lay this out, all this stuff out first, then decide on a graphic and where I want my points to land, right? So I'll have a point here, probably a point down here, point up here, because those are places that are blank on the car. It makes sense. And everything else really just starts to work itself out. So if you guys have any questions, you can always hit me up in the comments, or go to srgfx.com/support And we'll do our best to help you out with any questions you have there. Austin, if you want this wrap design, just hit me up and I'll tell you what you got to do to get it. If you want to get feedback on any one of your designs at any time, you can go to the Facebook page for feedback. I will put the link in the video description so you can find it easily. All right, you guys have a good day.